Some moments don't need to be loud to be unforgettable. Sometimes, it's a glance across a crowded gym, the echo of laughter behind a closed door, or the way someone says your name that leaves a permanent mark. First, I just want to say thank you to all of my viewers that's listening to this story. Your likes, your kind comments, and you sharing this to friends and families, it gives me the courage to be vulnerable and to tell my truth. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman to write down stories like this, but here I am, sharing my heart with you. And that means more than you know. My name is Claire Monroe, and I live in a quiet suburban town in Ohio, the kind where everyone knows your dog's name but still pretends they don't see you when you're crying in the grocery store. I've been married for 16 years to Mark, a financial advisor with the kind of steady presence that used to make me feel safe. Now it just feels like background noise. He's not a bad man, not by any means. He works hard, pays the bills, mows the lawn every Saturday. But somewhere between parent-teacher meetings and back pain commercials, we forgot how to look at each other like we used to. And then came the gym. Mark suggested we join one together, said it'd be good for our health and bonding. I laughed at first. Bonding over dumbbells? But I agreed. I think part of me hoped sweating side by side would somehow reheat the lukewarm casserole that had become our marriage. The gym was new, sleek, and smelled like lemon-scented disinfectant and ambition. That's where I first saw Jamal. He was tall. Not just tall, commanding. Skin the color of dark coffee, eyes that held something between kindness and storm clouds. And when he smiled, it wasn't flirtatious. It wasn't suggestive. It was warm. Sincere. The kind of smile you didn't expect in a place where people grunted and wiped their sweat off shared machines. He was a trainer, popular, patient, always encouraging. I watched him work with clients while pretending to stretch, trying not to look too interested. That first week, we never spoke. I didn't even catch his name until I heard a receptionist call it out one afternoon. But he noticed me. I could tell. Just a second too long of a glance when we passed in the cardio section. A nod. A casual wave. Then came the day he approached me. Mark had skipped gym that evening, said he was swamped with numbers and deadlines. I didn't mind. It gave me space. Space I didn't realize I'd been craving. I was struggling with the rowing machine, and I guess my frustration was written all over my face. Jamal walked over, towel slung around his neck, and offered, "Mind if I help you out?" That voice. Low. Calm. Like velvet over gravel. I stammered, sure. Yeah. That'd be great. He adjusted the seat, showed me how to hold the handles properly, and guided me through the motion. "See," he said, flashing that slow grin. "You're stronger than you think." I laughed nervously. "You sound like a fortune cookie." He chuckled. "Maybe. But that doesn't make it any less true." It wasn't what he said. It was how he said it. Like he saw me. Not as Mark's wife. Not as someone's mom. Not as the tired woman who still wore makeup to the grocery store out of habit. But me. We didn't talk long. Just enough to share a few smiles, a few jokes. But that 5-minute conversation stayed with me the rest of the night. I caught myself smiling at my reflection while brushing my teeth, replaying the moment like a favorite song on loop. Over the next few weeks, Jamal and I kept bumping into each other. At first, it was casual, nods, smiles, a joke here and there. Then, more. He'd start his shift early to catch me during my warm-ups. He'd ask about my day, compliment my form, offer advice even when I didn't ask for it. Mark didn't notice. Or maybe he did and didn't care. He'd be on the treadmill with headphones in, checking emails between sets. The conversations with Jamal started to stretch longer. He'd linger after my workouts, ask about the book I was reading, tell me about his younger sister who just started college. He never crossed a line. Never said anything inappropriate. And yet, I could feel something humming beneath the surface, possibility. And that scared me more than anything. One night, as I was leaving the gym, Jamal walked me to my car. The parking lot was quiet, a light breeze picking up the scent of distant rain. He looked at me and said, "Claire, you're okay?" I nodded. Too quickly. "You ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" I blurted, not sure where the words came from. He paused. "Sometimes. But I think those are the moments we're being called back to ourselves." I stared at him. He wasn't just a gym trainer anymore. He was a mirror. And I didn't always like what I saw. That night, I lay in bed next to Mark, eyes wide open in the dark. He snored softly, unaware. I wasn't thinking about cheating. Not really. I was thinking about feeling. About the version of me that used to laugh loud, that used to dream, that used to get excited about something as simple as a smile across a crowded room. I didn't want an affair. I wanted to be seen. But the line between those two things? It's thinner than you think. There's something about 4 a.m. silence that forces you to face your life. No music. No voices. Just the low hum of the refrigerator and the sound of your own thoughts, loud, echoing, unrelenting. That's how I found myself one morning, barefoot in the kitchen, holding a mug of tea I hadn't sipped, staring out the window at nothing. I wasn't thinking about Jamal. Not entirely. I was thinking about the way he made me think about me. About the person I used to be. The way he looked at me like I still mattered, not for the dinner I made or the bills I paid, but for something deeper. Mark still loved me, I think. But we had started living parallel lives, close but never touching. The kind of closeness that grows cold in its predictability. I couldn't even remember the last time we had a real conversation that didn't involve bills, our daughter, or the dishwasher making that weird sound again. But now, someone else was listening. And even worse, I wanted to be heard. It was a Friday evening. I was supposed to meet Mark at the gym, but he bailed again, work emergency. I didn't even ask questions anymore. It had become routine. I went alone, knowing exactly who would be there. Jamal. He smiled when he saw me, like always. But this time, he didn't walk over. He waited, watching to see if I'd come to him. I did. We ended up talking for nearly an hour between sets, half the time pretending to focus on form, the other half sharing pieces of our lives like kids trading secrets under a blanket fort. I used to write, I admitted, as we leaned against the stretching bars. His eyebrows rose. Really? What kind of stuff? Essays. Mostly personal ones. I liked finding meaning in small things. That's dope. You still write? I looked away. Not in years. Life got loud. Jamal was quiet for a moment. Then maybe it's time to turn the volume down again. It hit me harder than I expected. A stranger, someone who barely knew me, saw the pieces I thought I'd lost. Encouraged me without needing anything in return. That kind of care? It's dangerously addictive. We were walking out of the gym when the skies opened up. One of those sudden, spring downpours that soaks you before you can blink. I squealed, laughing, holding my gym bag over my head. Jamal laughed too, and before I could protest, he grabbed my hand and pulled me under the awning just outside the doors. It was innocent, the kind of thing you'd do with a friend. But the moment our hands touched, something shifted. I could feel it. He looked down at me, and I knew. He felt it too. The rain was falling in sheets behind us. I was standing close enough to see the drops clinging to his eyelashes. My heart was pounding in my ears. Not because of lust, but because of possibility. Of choice. He reached up, slowly, brushing a strand of wet hair from my face. I didn't stop him. "Claire," he whispered. And then he stepped back. He didn't kiss me. Didn't cross that final line. But somehow, the fact that he could have, and didn't, made it even more intimate. That night, I sat on the porch long after Mark had gone to bed. I opened an old notebook, the kind I hadn't touched in years. And I wrote. I wrote about the gym. About Jamal. About silence. About being seen. About almost falling for someone who made me feel alive again. But most of all, I wrote about choice. Because I hadn't cheated. But I'd come close enough to know the ache of it. The temptation wasn't about Jamal. It was about a part of myself I thought was gone, passion, vulnerability, the desire to be more than just someone's wife. A week later, I walked into the gym and found Jamal near the weights, stretching. He looked up and smiled, but it was a different smile this time. One laced with understanding. With distance. A mutual, unspoken agreement. "Hey," I said. "Hey," he replied. No flirtation. No tension. Just two people who had shared a fragile moment and decided not to break it. As I turned to go, he called out, "Hey, Claire? Yeah? Start writing again. Don't wait for someone else to remind you that you're still in there." It's been 3 months since that night in the rain. Mark and I are still together. We've started therapy. Small steps. Real ones. I don't go to that gym anymore. But I did start writing again. And that, more than anything, saved me. Sometimes, the biggest story isn't about the person you almost fell for. It's about the version of yourself you finally chose to reclaim. Thank you again for reading, for listening. Your support gives me courage. Your comments remind me I'm not alone. And I promise, as long as I keep writing, I'll keep telling the truth, even when it's messy, even when it hurts. Because that's where the healing lives.